Hello and welcome as you join us having a bit of tipple, chatting about Mtuli's budget, whether it makes sense, whether it doesn't, what we think people ought to know, and why they ought to know it. Rufaro is away this week. I'd like to say that he's away working very hard, but I don't think
he's not given to working very hard,
especially when he's away.
And in December.
Well, it's November.
For Rufaro, it's already December.
It's silly season.
Yeah.
So Ranga is joining us, and Ranga is a very serious guy.
Yeah,
but I'm sure he'll have a few interesting things to say about the budget.
Certainly.
And later in the show, we will have one of our old friends back to help us unpack Mtuli's speech.
No, it's the tax expert.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that, actually.
But before we get to that, drinking anything interesting?
Yes, I thought I would try again the white tea. It's made in Vumba. It's a local production, Padabris, and that's what
You've had this before?
I've had this, I think, earlier seasons, and I thought I'd give it a go again.
And it gave birth to a certain phrase that is now common on the show.
No,
heated shrub juice.
Okay, heated shrub juice. Yes.
So you're having your heated shrub juice again. Mm-hmm. Ranga, need we ask?
Yeah, look, I thought of trying the heated shrub juice, but I just thought, let me stick to what I'm used to.
Which is?
Rooibos.
Oh, you guys have no sense of adventure. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be sampling the Glenlivet triple cask matured. This is a gift from an old friend of yours and mine.
Yes.
Richmond Chiwinge.
I remember him very well from high school.
He's done well for himself. He's now in the diaspora and making enough money that he can send us bottles of whiskey from time to time.
Yeah, I remember him. He used to be a cross-country champion and bridge champion and chess and all sorts of things that you would never believe.
Okay, I just know him as a drinker. But anyway, Matimai, it's not end.
Can we help you to say thank you, even if we don't know how it says? Thank you.
Yeah.
It just reminds me of the last time we were with Rufaro. He had this huge bottle from Kariba. Was it Kariba Vic Falls?
Yes.
And it looks like George's. It's a lucky day for George.
It's a liter.
Yeah?
It's a liter. And
all to...
And I've got nobody to share it with.
Exactly.
It's going to be a long weekend.
I think Rufaro will be quite envious when he sees that.
Yeah, it's quite fragrant. Sweet on the nose. I like it. Believe it or not, I've actually never had a Glenlivet.
You know it's lost on us, right?
Yeah, I'm trying. Okay, so maybe let's get to the business of the day. So Mtuli came. I'm trying not to say the word ramble, but he came, he spoke, and he went.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I think what I found very interesting is he is a man who, when he came, he had so much gusto, so much exuberance, and his voice was very loud and boisterous. And every time he presented, he commanded Parliament, or any interview he did initially, he commanded the room. And it was quite sad to see him cower and give the speech. I think so. I think he was very subdued, extremely subdued, and he just wanted to get it over and done with. And that's exactly what he did. It was short and brief and done, and he just went.
Is it because do you get a sense that maybe he's not excited about things that he's doing?
Not exactly. I think that he's coming to the realization that his predecessors came to. So if you remember, Tenai BT went through the same process where he comes up with very interesting ideas and everything seems to be working, And then eventually there's the elephant in the room, and he must address the elephant in the room to get sustainable growth. Chinamasa, similarly, if you remember Chinamasa when he came in the first 2-3 years, again, extremely exuberant, extremely jovial mood. But by his last budget, if you remember, just before the coup, 2016, he was again extremely subdued. He was the most sober budget we've ever had, which was the 2016 budget. If you remember Chinamasa, where he comes and he says, these GMB subsidies, we cannot have them. We cannot pay bonuses. And he was called, unmentionable names by the president at that time. But he was extremely subdued, which is quite different from the 2014 budget. And I saw that with Mthuli, that when you look at Mthuli when he presented his first budget, which was in 2018, and you look at the budget he's presented, he's extremely subdued because I think he's now come head to face with the elephant in the room that all his predecessors had to deal with.
Well, I mean, you talk about his 2018 budget. His first speech was upon his appointment, before he landed in ZIM. Maybe you want to compare and contrast with that.
Well, exactly. If
His first interaction with the press.
We remember that very vividly. And I think it's a common video that does the rounds on social media, where he comes out and he explains that this idea of a Zim dollar just doesn't work. And, bad money chases after good money. Chases out good money. And that was his principle, right? And if you look at the interview, the first interview that he actually gave was with Trevor Nube. And again, he was looking very, very shiny and very, very alert. If you remember Davos, you remember Davos? Sorry. I need to. I think this is a good context to
challenge you.
This is a good context. But do you guys remember Davos in 2017, right? And they hosted, after Davos, they went to Switzerland, and they hosted. In fact, Mthuli, they hosted investors, and Mthuli gave a very thunderous recommendation for Zimbabwe, and he was very bullish at that particular time. And I think when he came in, he thought he could solve this, but I think he's just come and he's now faced with the elephant in the
I
room.
also remember he got everyone excited because he was actually hitting the correct tune in terms of things that he intended to do. For example, the issue of the Zimbabwe dollar and the fact that maybe it was better to stabilize the economy using the US dollar. Look at him right now. He's the biggest defender of the Zim dollar. And even when it's very clear that the local currency is failing, he seems to think that maybe there's a way out of this thing. But I also one of the things that I see, obviously, which is consistent from that era you spoke about, Chinamasa and now Mthuli, is the expenditure side tends to be the biggest problem for
Thank you for bringing us back on topic.
Yes, the finance ministers. So it looks like you are getting into a system that is rigid, so you can play around with anything but not expenditure. Even when you look at the fines, the ministries and government departments, they requested for 2.7 trillion. And they are getting about 900 billion. They're about just under $1 trillion.
Does anyone even understand what these numbers mean?
No. They are Zim dollars.
But
yes. But I think what is very clear is it's very, very difficult to try and rein in on the level of expenditure. So, and I think from Mthuli,
I wanted to get away with it. I'm not as polite to He was asked for 2.7. He gave 900. So you can't say he can't. He did.
Yes.
He refused 2/3 of the request.
Yeah, it does. But I think sometimes then it comes to prioritizing. So sometimes there are certain ministries, obviously, that are allocated a bigger chunk of what they request. And it's almost a given. You look at Ministry of Defense, Home Affairs, the sometimes
OPC.
OPC,
Which are the top ones?
Agriculture, Ministry of Defense, OPC.
Minister of
In
Education,
terms
obviously.
of actual allocation?
No, over expenditure.
Oh, so okay, so you're going back to
over-
2021. So
Yeah,
in 2021,
I think what maybe let me just pick up on what Ranga has said, which is quite critical. The issue is if the line ministries say they wanted 2.7, they're actually telling us what they would do. Now, the Minister of Finance might have reined them in, but they will find ways, and that's where quasi-fiscal activities then start. That's where offshore borrowings then come in. They will spend how much they want to spend. I mean, if you look at the over expenditure,
okay, we're going off track here. The original question is, what do you guys make of the budget? Good or bad?
ugly.
Somewhere in the middle, in the sense, okay, there
Between
is
ugly and what?
and probably not good. It can be good. It can be good. It can be good when you've got a scenario where the only way out is to introduce more taxes. And you then look at the whole set of accounts and say, okay, what are you funding mainly? It's mostly to fund some subsidies. And I think there's that consistency. Even if you, over the years, you see that maybe these are sort of loss-making ventures, but there's actually an appetite. So you look at allocations that are given to agriculture, whether it's command and the climate proofing system that they're trying to work with from Fudza. I think about 80 billion ZIM dollars were spent last in 2021, and even already from the SDRs.
144.
Yeah.
A third has already been
A
spent.
third already has been spent. Part of that is going towards
44 is not a third of 900.
No,
No, it's
a third
actually
has been spent, but 144
351.
144 went into an expenditure that had already been done, which is the
road
roads.
network, yeah.
Right.
Harare to Bay Bridge and also the interchange at Mbudzi.
Yeah.
And then I think about...
And it's already been paid off. I think that's what we need to highlight, that the payment they've made with the SDRs, the drawdown that has actually happened,
it's 351 million.
the largest of the 350 is 144, which has gone to a road.
But a road's a bad thing.
No.
You know,
Wait
Claire drove on place-
a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute, George. You're not getting his point. The point is, when those roads when they started to grade those roads and to do I think it's the Harare Bike Bridge road, right? It was budgeted for, right? That's what we were told. So why are SDRs paying for what we already budgeted last year? So SDRs were not in our budget last year. But the minute the SDRs come, 144, that's the largest of the drawdowns that's already done, has gone into that. That's money that has already been paid.
We now have the money, so let's use
But
it.
that wasn't in the budget. That goes back to his point, which is it doesn't matter what the minister has said. If the line ministries have said this is how much we're going to spend, they're just going to spend.
So
even in terms of prioritization, so I think when you look at the list of where they plan to spend part of the SDRs, I think they made reference to some 30 million which they're going to use to support horticulture. And you'd think this is a productive activity.
Yes.
So in terms of prioritization, I think the drawdowns must have been first on those areas that can generate more economic activity, employment, and things like that. But like what Tinashe is saying, I mean, the first drawdowns were on the 144 million on the roads, and also for the command, more from Budza. I think there's another huge amount that's going to be spent there.
So we're going to take this once in a lifetime windfall
Yes.
that comes from the IMF, and we're going to give
Into a hole.
into poor rural farmers for
I don't think
household food security.
I don't think that's even right. Into a hole. Command agriculture is
Well, from food.
it's a hole.
Yeah, so that's the problem, especially also when you consider that in terms of the support the previous support that has been made to the agriculture sector through command, it's coming out very clear from the statement that the recoveries are very low. In fact, one of the lowest that I saw, I think, was a recovery rate of less than 0.5%.
Or not?
Wheat. I think it was on wheat, yeah.
Sorry, 0.5%. That means 1 in 200 people
Yes.
Yeah.
paid back.
Yes.
No, but okay. No,
Soya.
but wheat, in fairness, wheat hasn't all come in yet.
Yeah, no,
Wheat is
that
coming
I
in
was
now.
going to say that the one that's. But
But-
what we need to focus on is maize, which was
Which no sane person still has maize on the farm.
exactly and only 22%, and soya is another one where it's only 13%.
So wait, so where's the 78% sitting? Where's that debt sitting? Right now, the 78 who didn't pay. How is
Yeah.
that number being accounted for?
Oh, okay. So it's accounted for in over expenditure at Ministry of Agriculture.
No, but they got the money from.
Ministry of Agriculture
No,
from
they got from
CBZ.
banks. They got it from
So
banks.
50% is sitting on CBZ's balance sheet, and then
Against-
the other 50%
against the government guarantee.
against the government guarantee. No. There's 50% that's sitting directly on CBZ's balance sheet.
That's
that they
their
took.
loss.
That's their loss. And then there's another 50% that comes with a government guarantee.
And has that 50% that comes with the government guarantee been booked
Yes.
as a loss?
Yes, it's been booked as a loss because Ministry of Agriculture. That's why Ministry of Agriculture over expenditure is 177%. Ministry of Health it's 46%. They've only spent
Half of the money
half of the money that they were allocated. Ministry of Agriculture
has
has
spent
almost double.
And yet we are planning. Yeah, I think it also comes down to the way we plan things. So, for example, this year, the coming season, they're expecting 3 million metric tons. So what it does is,
Wait. Sorry. Say that again.
yeah,
No, I think that was in the statement, but in the actual
Yeah.
when I read, let's
it's actually it's there.
3 million.
Yeah, 3 million metric
And
tons.
this year we got how many?
We were supposed to have gotten 2.7.
2.7.
And how many did we get?
We'll be like
Last
to
count
get.
we were on 1 point.
We
Yeah.
won one.
Yeah.
I think 1.1.
I think.
1.1 was total.
I don't
growth,
think
but
we
not
even
just
got
maize.
to 2 million. Yeah.
So we got a triple.
Yeah. So what happens is, so if you've got such a big number in terms of your projections, it also means even in terms of the input, in terms of the cost side, you're actually working with a 3 million kind of production. So it means your cost side,
Your
actually
expenditure.
your expenditure is going to
just
be
overblown.
I'm just stuck on people actually thinking they're going to triple. But anyway, we've got to go for a break. But before we go, did Mutuli budget for a surplus or a deficit?
Deficit.
And this year, is he focusing on surplus or a deficit?
a deficit.
Yeah.
Sorry, but the surplus works.
No, I think.
Yeah, so I think it's a smallish kind of deficit. It's for this year is about 0.5% of what GDP, and so that's why I'm saying it's going to be financed through
TBs.
through TBs. And,
So our grandchildren will be
yes.
there.
And also
so
maybe
I
just
want
before
to
we
do this-
just before we go, I think there's one element that we usually don't talk about, which is the support that we are getting from donors,
and remittances.
and it's huge. So is expecting almost 750 million US dollars
850.
for
This year?
Yeah,
This year.
Yeah.
This year is
So we're gonna get
850
close
million,
to $1 billion.
close
Yes.
to $1 billion, and half $500 million went into the Ministry of Health.
So
Next
so
year you
so
expect- is expecting.
already it's actually a big chunk. I mean, 800 million, even if you're using a rate of 100,
No,
which
that's
is
not
No, that's US
Let's
dollars.
talk
yeah.
about US dollars.
No. I'm
Which
saying
everybody understands.
okay, but if you want to try and put it in the context of the
Budget.
the budget.
The budget is how much?
No, I think
No,
I
get
get
what
where
you're
he's
saying.
where he's
But
going.
let's go very
But
back.
let's
So
let
the
the
budget is 4
listeners
billion.
let the listeners hear this argument because this is a very nice argument.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
So
Rufaro, please come back.
yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to say already there is a massive.
No, make the point
Yeah.
that if you look at
Yes.
the
So
donors and then you put that into Zim dollars.
yeah, you put that into Zim dollars.
20% of the budget.
Exactly. And yet we still have got pressure for us to get more revenue through
Okay, we're
taxation.
going to
and
come
things
back to
like
that revenue issue through taxation. But okay, before we go for the break that we should have gone for 5 minutes ago, what's the deficit in money
This year or next year?
next year?
Next year, it's less than 100 billion ZIM dollars.
Which is how much in real money? In US dollars. Sorry, I must stop saying real money on TV.
That's about
Half a billion, eh?
half
Between
a
half
billion.
and 1 billion.
Half a billion dollars. Yeah, about 400 million, thereabouts. I don't think that's the big problem. Remember, the numbers that you're seeing don't give you the accurate picture of what's actually happening.
We're going to start on that when we come back from the break. Give us a couple of minutes to powder our noses. I don't know what he does during the break, but we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Just go back and make sure that things are working on the other side of the screen.
Welcome back. I hope your nose is sufficiently powdered.
I believe so.
Before we went away, you, or was it Ranga, one of you, was trying to explain that the problem is not the budget. The problem is what actually happens during the course of the year, and the ministries know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. I think that was me. I think let's be very clear. Nobody takes our budget process seriously.
Really?
So those numbers.
But we're having a whole show
are
about
numbers. Yes, we are, right? And we critically look at those numbers. But when you then drill down on the numbers, you can see what's actually happening on the ground, that nobody really cares about it. So, for example, if you look at agriculture and the over expenditure in agriculture, where it's double what they budgeted for, and this is before the year has ended. If you look at road construction, all we were told around road construction is that this was budgeted for, this was money that was already budgeted for. But when you look at SDRs, the minute SDRs comes, it goes into paying. So what was budgeted for, what wasn't budgeted for? And I think Ranga brought an excellent example of what actually transpires in the Ministry of Agriculture, and which I think exemplifies the entire budget, is that when you look at the inputs, so they will say, they will work with an output, and the output is we're going to produce 3 million metric tons
because
of maize.
We produce 2.8.
Because we produce 2.8.
Even if we don't have 2 million.
It doesn't matter. Delivered. And nobody has verified on the ground. But that number then informs the budgeting. And that's how much they will spend. Right? Never mind what trickles down and what's actually on the ground. So what's driving, and I think Ranga had a very good point, because that's what's been our problem for the last 20 years. It's expenditure. It's expenditure. We can't rein in. And where the Ministry of Finance tries to rein in, what tends to happen is you then have quasi-fiscal activities happening. So where the government is, the central bank is now borrowing on behalf of government.
So wait. So the Minister of Finance says, this is not right.
Yeah.
Then somebody in the government goes to the central bank.
Yes.
And they do a deal that excludes the minister.
I'm not so sure what the modalities would be, but what we know is, for example, we then have $1.4 billion that we borrowed from Afrexim Bank on the back of, I'm not so sure, commodities or whatever it is, but that should have gone through the Ministry of Finance. Why did it go through?
Well, hasn't it? It's about to. Because don't we have a data assumption?
So it goes back to what Tinashe was saying, that it's fine. The ministry might have budgeted for 9 billion, when 900 billion rather, when Minister of Finance budgeting for 900 billion, when the ministries and government departments wanted 2.7 billion. They always find 2.7 trillion. So they always
numbers are hard, eh?
Yeah. So they always find their way of getting to the number that they want.
Yes.
You see? So by doing such things like maybe resorting to having to borrow from the RBZ, which is outside what the
Okay, so
fiscus-
let's go there, right? So Mutuli hinted in this budget that he's going to be assuming 3.3.
So he's actually assuming the full, well, not assuming, but he's passing it through Parliament, which is the full, it's $4.9 billion, which is sitting at the RBZ.
So why is everyone
Of
talking
which
about 3.3?
3.3 is the blocked funds.
So wait, so there's
For-
5 billion
Yes.
that we're going to take over.
Yes.
So wait, so there's this number of 18.7 that is floating around. That's
The
the
debt.
new
National
external
debt. Okay, so let's be very clear what the external debt is. So the external debt is $13.2 billion as recorded by the Ministry of Finance, but there's also a $3.5 billion that's going to the farmers. So that's
16 point.
about $17 billion. So that's $17 billion. But the sum of the Chinese debt has not come through. So like Wange, Colliery, that hasn't
not
been
yet
booked
due.
in. It's not yet due. So that hasn't been, well, the project, yes. The project hasn't
We
been.
don't owe it yet because they haven't delivered
the project. But once the project has been delivered, that has to come on as well. So you're looking at, if you're being realistic, you're looking at around $20 billion. Now, the Public Finance Act is very specific about this, that you can only spend up to 70%. So going back to Ranga's point, what we're saying is the minister can present a budget, but what actually happens is far removed from budgets.
Yes, so let's come back to this 4.9. So you're saying there's this debt sitting at the central bank.
Yes.
Call it 5 billion. It's an easier number
Yeah.
to say than 4.9. That you and I owe, but we didn't know we owed it.
What we knew, but the Ministry of Finance was only compelled by the High Court to actually come out and say, yes, indeed, there is this particular debt that the government put a guarantee on and that the central bank borrowed from the Afrexim Bank. At the material time, and this history
Was
is actually
Afrexim another,
important.
right?
Yeah, at the material time, remember the minister was actually asked about this debt. And the first thing that he said this is off-balance sheet debt. If people remember this was a year and a half ago when he was literally asked, I don't know where his offices are, but he was asked by one of the journalists that there's this debt that's sitting at the RBZ. Would you like to expand on it? And he actually said, no, don't worry about that debt. That debt is off balance sheet debt. And we kept on insisting that, no, it's actually sitting on RBZ's balance sheet. So I think it's a good thing that he's actually now acknowledged.
But okay, I mean, we
But it keeps on,
we go back to the
it's
fiscal
actually a
question.
recurring thing, actually. So I wouldn't say it's a good thing because this thing keeps on coming, you see. So we're going to assume this 5 billion, then we give it like 2 years, 3 years, there'll be another 2-3 billion that will accumulate over time. I think as part of, I think that's why people are always making calls for
So
the reforms.
over how long was the 5 billion accumulated?
So the $3.3 billion has to do with legacy debts, blocked funds.
Can you say this in words that my mother understands?
Okay, these
So
were
who do we owe
private
and why
sector.
do we owe them?
Well, when we switched one-to-one gauge, meant that there were a lot of people a lot of foreign creditors with money stuck in Zimbabwe that couldn't be taken out. And the RBZ has seen it upon itself, or government has seen it upon itself, to take over that debt, which was private sector debt, which is now taxpayers' debt.
Because the private sector thought they had enough money to pay it,
Yes.
and then they woke up one day and they didn't because the rate had moved.
The 3.3 was
Yeah,
actually
private
not there.
sector had plan of actually settling this debt. So I think what just then we had a current change that then sort of put all their plans out of line. So central bank just said, "Don't worry,
Yeah.
we'll assume that."
What happens in other countries when there's a devaluation?
Well, this was quite different from a devaluation. So what happened is the monetary system we all thought these were US dollars.
You did?
Well, we all did, especially foreign investors.
Remember,
because foreign investors actually put in US dollars, right? So they put in a dollar in the system, and then when they wanted to take the dollar out, they were told they couldn't, right? And then what our BZ has said is, no. It's still a dollar. And what we're going to do is we are the ones who are going to guarantee that this money comes out as dollars. Because when it came in as dollars. And these people cannot take their money out.
So what's the
dollars.
significance of moving it from wherever it was parked to now the debt assumption bill, which I presume means it's now no longer on
Official
RBZ,
debt.
It's now part of Ministry of Finance debt.
It's now country debt. So it was not official. So when it was sitting on RBZ's balance sheet, which it shouldn't, from just a judicious and process perspective and good public finance management, it was never meant to sit on RBZ because RBZ's mandate has nothing to do with taking these kinds of debt. So originally, 3 years ago, that's what should have happened. This debt should have just moved from balance sheet, from RBZ balance sheet, and gone through to the national balance sheet. So I think from a judicious perspective, from a process perspective, it's good. The impact of it's now recognized officially. So in terms of interest,
are these creditors going to get their money any faster?
Of course not. I think
Are they gonna get better value?
they'll just join a long queue of all outstanding debt that we have not been able to.
No. Actually, they've spelled out what's going to happen, which I think is going to be another exercise in interesting gymnastics, in interesting monetary gymnastics or karate, depending on your choice of martial arts. But what's actually going to happen is they're going to issue TBs, and these TBs are tradable. That is what the Ministry of Finance have actually said.
So this debt is going to get discounted in the market?
It's going to get discounted in the market.
So the TBs will be in hard currency?
In hard currency.
Okay.
So the government says, we're going to pay you after 10 years, after 20 years, your 300,000. And you can sell it to somebody else.
And
they'll have a coupon.
So you actually think there are some people out there who are excited about taking this hard currency TBs. Remember 2013, in fact, I think 2014, there was a time that I think it was Tendai BT who...
it was Chinamasa.
No, it was BT.
It
was BT.
BT
I think he wanted to clean up the balance sheet, RBZ balance sheet. And then he started taking...
the gold...
They were actually issuing TBs.
There was a whole bunch of TBs that he issued.
He was issuing TBs to try and clean up the RBZ balance sheet. I think for a time, maybe about 2 years or so, these TBs were being repaid in proper currency.
Yeah, so let me make it very clear. It wasn't Tendai BT. That happened under Chinamasa. So what Chinamasa did is, because there was debt after Gono, there was about $1.4 billion that was sitting again on RBZ balance sheet. And Tendai BT did not deal with that issue, right? Tendai BT wanted to deal with that issue under HIPIC. So to say, okay, there are these foreigners that we owe. I'm going to take that debt plus the national debt and deal with it as one issue, because that's the elephant in our room. And I'm going to deal with it as one issue. But unfortunately, he didn't deal with it. And then Chinamasa, unfortunately, eventually came head-to-head with this issue. And then he said, okay, let's do exactly what's happening, which was in 2015, was a debt assumption bill, where the government took over that debt and then gave those foreign creditors. Now, you asked...
Local.
And local, yeah. TBs. And rightly so, they discounted them. Now, you asked a very important question, George.
Oh, should I have said something important?
Yeah, you asked because you asked the most important.
It's probably the first.
It's actually very, very, very incisive, because that's why I said it's going to be an interesting gymnastic, because you remember with Gono, they had people who had been creditors for 10 years. So the minute they got those TBs, do you honestly think that they were going to wait another 10 years?
No way, they'll just discount them.
Even at 50%, do you think the guy cared?
No, they got much less than
There you go.
I was buying at the time in a previous capacity. We bought some of those.
Exactly.
Yeah, some of that paper very cheap.
That's why I say the most interesting thing that's going to happen. I don't think it was well thought out, but the most interesting thing, we can't determine what the market is going to do. But you're looking at somebody like IATA or one of these foreign creditors in the context of what's happening globally, who are going to be given this paper by government of Zimbabwe. What do you think they're going to do? And there are people. Remember, the way financial markets work is, as George intimated, is there are people who are willing, if at the right discount price. Remember, this is the market. At the right discount price, there are people who will buy this paper.
This is interesting.
Not depressing.
I'd wanted us to talk about where Mtuli intends to spend his money, but it looks like it's time for us to go and powder our noses again. Maybe when we come back, we can delve a little bit into that and a little bit into where he expects to get the money from. What do you do during the breaks?
I drink more Red Bulls, nothing more.
Okay. Well, I'll get a refill. Maybe visit the little boy shop. See you in a couple of minutes. Welcome back. During the break, Ranga had to dash off and actually do some important producer things, but he's been replaced by an old friend who is no stranger to the show. Welcome back, George.
Well, thank you very much.
And today we have you here as an accountant and a man who's passionate about all things tax.
I'm not sure that's quite accurate, but yeah, we'll be discussing tax at some point. Which is, okay.
We're going to apply you some alcohol and see if
And
we
the
can
wisdom
get
will
you.
come out.
The wisdom will come out. And see if we can make you famous. Ask Busisa. And Busisa didn't even drink when he joined us at season.
Yeah, but that was quite a good clip. You did very well, yeah.
He was around alcohol. So that
Osmosis.
Anyway, okay, so we went down a rabbit hole in the last segment. We were meant to be talking about expenditure. So I'm going to try and keep control of this discussion. Where is Mtuli planning to spend his money?
Okay, so when you look at budget allocations, you're looking at primary and health, primary and secondary school education.
What percent?
That's about 12.8, and it's the same as Ministry of Agriculture at 12.8. But in the past, what tends to happen is agriculture tends to overexpend, to spend more than they're budgeted for. So we can expect that.
But it's never been budgeted at the same levels of it as education.
No, it hasn't. It hasn't. But I think World Bank produced a very incisive report some time back in 2017, 2018, where they showed that Zimbabwe overexpends on agriculture.
Okay, so
it's a particular...
but okay, let's go back to the hierarchy. So number one, education tie with agriculture. Number two?
Education tied with agriculture. So number three.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, you can't count it.
Ministry of Health. Yeah. And then after that, you have Defense. Ministry of Defense.
Where's industry and commerce?
It's further down.
About 4%, I believe.
Yeah, further down.
What does it say about our priorities?
No, it's interesting. I would like to obviously ask Tinashe in terms of the intention that we were talking about earlier. To say in terms of education, what is the intention to have such a high budget for the first time?
No,
education has always been.
It's always been
but
number one.
Agriculture, we tend to leapfrogged. So we're actually budgeting for it. But like I've indicated, agriculture already in the last budget, they've already overspent twice, double what they were allocated. And this is before the year has ended. So this is up to Q3. We don't know. So Q4 would have been even more. So you can expect that they've spent more than double what was budgeted for. So we expect that they will overspend. Ministry of Health actually underspends. So up to Q3, they'd only spent about half of their
But
budget.
then, as we were discussing earlier, Ministry of Health is highly subsidized by
It's highly subsidized by the
donor
donors.
community. So
So it's
they're
okay for us
okay
to subsidize
underfarmers.
farmers.
No, it's not okay for us.
And I'm a
But,
farmer, eh?
I know. But we've had this discussion before. There's a reason for subsidy, but when the subsidy goes over and over, and it can go over years, then it becomes a problem. Especially in the context, I think, in your earlier communication or discussion with Ranga, where the recoveries are very, very low. Because we actually don't say it's a subsidy, we give it out as loans. And if it's a loan, there's an expectation that it should come back. So if it was a clear subsidy and we're very clear that this is a subsidy policy and there's no expectation from the farmers that the money is going to come back, I think that would be okay. But we're giving out loans that don't get repaid. So
Exactly.
that becomes a huge
So
problem in
that's
terms
an
of
interesting point.
subsidy,
So the 12.8% is with an assumption that money will be paid back.
it will be paid back.
So
which is not
when
going
some
to
of the loans go bad,
That's how you.
we're going to go beyond the 12.8%.
be. Exactly. Yeah.
But education touches every household. One of our biggest revenue earners, probably if you went to what's the level below sectoral level? And
subsector.
a subsector level, it's our number one.
Okay. Education.
Because of the diaspora. We even have a bottle of whiskey thanks to the diaspora. And yet, agriculture, which contributes what percent of GDP?
Call it 9%.
9%
In a good year.
is at par. Industry and commerce put together, which contribute
Manufacturing actually contributes about 18%, and then wholesale another 19%. So that's
And they
close
get
to
4.
30.
I think you have to contextualize it.
This is why I like having you on
Yeah.
the show. You're such an apologist.
I'm an apologist. The context really is we going towards an election period, first and foremost, and the assumption is the electorate, most of them are.
Well,
farmers.
this has been happening in the last 20 years.
Yeah, and we are always in election mode. so what you have to realize, we are never out of election mode.
Okay.
So it's really trying to get the electorate on board. If we assume that, I think most of the people are farmers. So it's a numbers game, really. It's not a GDP contribution game. Because if it was GDP contribution, I'm sure the priorities would be totally different. But if you look at the numbers of the people that actually benefit from whatever subsidies are coming through, then the allocations take a totally new angle.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, is it right?
No, it's not right. But I mean, that's another
We
rabbit
should
hole, I
tap
think.
our expectations.
Yeah.
It's money down
It's
rabbit
money down
hole,
the drain.
and
Oh, so it's
we should
okay.
just write it off. No, we shouldn't. I think the point is he's articulating what it is.
He's being an apologist.
No, I'm not being an apologist. If I was being an
Are you trying
apologist,
to
what
get
I
a-
would
are you
tell
trying to
you,
get an office in
he's saying-
Mtuli's-
he's
Are
saying-
you trying to get a job in Mtuli's
if
office?
I was being an apologist, what I would tell you is agriculture is subsidized everywhere in the world.
So now we've really put apologists in.
and there's no reason why we shouldn't subsidize in Zimbabwe. But then issues of affordability come in. I think all the other countries that actually subsidize agriculture can afford to do so. We can't. So our subsidies cost us much more than they cost other countries. So that's where I think our challenge is.
Well, and the farmers are actually not paying back. So
Yeah.
part of it has been loans, and the farmers are just
They
not
don't pay
paying
back. So that's sort of like distorts the whole situation.
So these are freebies. It's cash. It's cash to political supporters.
Yeah,
and that's how we
it's
should
really
look at
buying
it.
votes if you want to
Think
be
about
honest.
it. So in effect, what we're saying is the 12.8%. We should just write it off.
Yeah, we should write it off.
Okay. So the deficit is actually higher than what?
Yeah. That's my take on it.
Okay.
As a tax expert.
This is depressing. If we were Mtuli, or if Mtuli was sitting here 2 weeks ago and you'd asked our opinion, what would you have told him?
Go back in time. Don't take the job. But that's impossible. I think he's in a very difficult space, like you articulated earlier.
But why not do the obvious thing, right? To me, we should be,
George-
investing.
He was on a good point. Let him speak.
Oh, I thought he had finished. Sorry.
No, he hadn't.
Yeah, he articulated earlier to say Mtuli, when he came through, he actually thought he could change things. But his last budget speech, like we were saying, he realized, no, I can't actually change the system. So maybe just playing whatever the system requires him to play. I'm not sure. But I'm sure he articulated a bit better than I am at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm still saying, I don't understand. The obvious thing, right?
What's the obvious thing?
You look at your numbers. Everybody's going to be happier with more money from the diaspora. Let's fix the education system, right? Our kids haven't gone to school for 2 years. Yes, you know, our kids are in private schools. We haven't noticed it, but if you speak to anybody whose child is in a government school, a proper government school, in a high density area or in a rural area, they'll tell you there's been no real learning for 2 years. And this is
Maybe we can ask the apologist. Because George
No,
is making...
I don't want that level. The realist is a better way.
Okay. Let's ask the realist.
Yeah.
Because George is making a very good argument that actually, when you look at numbers, if you sorted out the education, there are more votes around education than there are in agriculture. So why would you focus more on agriculture?
Why would you assume there are more votes?
because
numbers, every home
has kids in a school.
in school. So if you sorted that out, that would be a
Big fix the
bonus.
schools, fix the sewage, fix the power.
You do realize sewage and power only exist in urban areas?
No, I think you're extending your argument the wrong way. Too far. Let's focus on, if you look at education, every rural household, there's somebody with kids going to school, and it's something that if you correctly sort out, if you correctly subsidize,
but if you
that
look
would
at
be
it,
significant.
the bottom, the way I would answer that, I think it's a very short-term approach, agriculture. You need to eat next year.
But my kid needs to go to school tomorrow.
Yeah, but if your kid goes to school tomorrow, you're going to eat in 10, 15 years' time.
We're
in a very short-term mode.
We've agreed with you. It's a write-off.
Yeah.
Both are write-offs. We've agreed
I'm
with
trying to explain why agriculture gets priority.
No, but George.
Because what they're trying to do is,
George,
we're having elections next year. If I give you money now, you put your plant down, you're probably going to have a crop next year. If I give you money for your kids, you're probably going to see the return after many years.
No. You're looking at it the wrong way. Okay, I think you're looking at it the wrong way. All of us have kids that are primary school age. All three of us. Imagine seeing your kid at home for 3 days or 4 days and not going to school. Imagine how much stress that puts on you. We're not even talking about the kid earning a salary in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
But the fact that you wake up and you see your kid.
It's quite a
sitting
relief
there.
on a lot of parents. Not that we agree. We're playing in your paradigm, which is not the apologist, but the realist paradigm.
Yeah.
And we're saying, in the realist paradigm, if I wanted to buy votes, I think that education would
The
be
kids in school.
would be a particular.
I don't agree.
So that's why we're asking you.
Remember
why
what has happened
agriculture,
in
not
education? Because
education?
we actually think education is very expensive in Zim because your kids are in private school. People are paying $5 to go to school a term.
The more reason.
And so it's already heavily subsidized. That's my point.
But the kids are not in school.
But I mean, the kids are not at school because of COVID. So there's a
No.
The
The
teachers
kids
are
are
not
not in
being
school because the
paid.
teachers aren't there.
Yeah, but we can always couch it in a very different way to make the point.
You see, you're an apologist. So this is where he's spending his money. Is this the problem? Is this why we have a deficit? Is this why we're suddenly assuming 3.3? What did you say? 4.9 billion of debt. Is this where the problem is, or is the problem somewhere else?
Well, it's part of the problem. And I think Ranga articulated it, that this frenzy and this insatiable need to overspend has been with us, I would say actually 40 years. And nobody has been able to
It's more
curtail
than 40 years. Smith came to his knees because he was funding a war.
Yes,
he couldn't afford.
that he couldn't afford. Yeah, so 56 years if you stretch it further. So I think nobody has been able to really rein it in. And I think it's coming out now. And I think where it's accumulating is in the debt. So we're overspending, we're borrowing, and it's all going down a hole. And then so what's left is you've got this big debt, you've got big subsidies, and not enough revenues. I think those are the three pillars that I find Zimbabwe in.
No, I agree with him on the subsidy, I think. I mean, there's one that I actually totally don't understand. Maybe you can assist. The subsidy, which
He's just going to say no, you know that. He's just going to say it's
transport industry, which is basically ZUPCO, to say why are we really in that space?
It's something I'm actually passionate about. Thank you very much for
noticed.
raising.
So I actually, if you investigated that a bit, to say why are we subsidizing ZUPCO?
Yeah, no, I would have thought that apologies to them.
I'll tell you, as a manager of, no, I'm not explaining why, but I'll tell you what I'm suffering as a manager of a business.
Yeah.
Previously, when we had combis, I actually didn't know how people got home and came to work. They did. Now, it's a major discussion point in our meetings because it's difficult for people to get home and it's become very expensive. So we have to do all these things as a business to help our staff get home at a decent hour so that they can be back at work at a decent hour, which is just increasing our costs.
You know, when I was doing my research, that's actually the feedback I was getting was anyone who's actually productive is not using ZUPCO because ZUPCO is not reliable, right? Like you have to figure out another transport means soon enough.
I don't know if I'd
you're
say it's not
productive.
reliable, but there's not enough of it.
Yeah, well, that's why it's just not reliable.
So if you say, I mean, the subsidies are actually not for the common good, is the third force in the subsidies something that's something that's happening that we don't understand? Because I mean, honestly,
are you about to run for parliament or something?
honestly, you can't tell them, because I can understand the subsidy in agriculture. You want to buy votes. Why would you then have a subsidy in an area where you're actually making the system dysfunctional?
That's a question to you. You tell us.
No. I'm asking
You're the
that question.
realist.
This is a good point for us to or else he's never coming back on this show. Give us a couple of minutes, we'll be back. Welcome back. That was an exciting segment. I'm really glad to have you back because
I'm glad to be back too.
Ranga and Tinashe, I just didn't understand what was happening those first couple of
I mean,
segments.
there were two economists in the same space, so you can expect that.
Do you blame it on the them being economists or on the tea?
Economists who don't drink.
Economists who drink tea.
You did trap juice.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay. So clearly, we're spending too much. And Mtuli's tried to close the gap by increasing his revenue. What do you make of that?
And maybe before you come in, just the context is ZIMRA has been over-exceeding its budgets continuously.
Since forever.
Since forever. Yeah. We've increased new taxes along the way. In the last
But has ZIMRA
10%.
been over-exceeding its targets?
Yes, it has.
No. I mean, has it really been over-exceeding its targets?
What
Because
are you
remember,
trying to say?
Okay, so what are you trying to say?
Is, remember, ZIMRA.
You think they need help?
ZIMRA collects in ZIM dollars.
Well, also in US dollars.
Yeah. So if we were to say, let's take a ZIMRA target at a point in time and put it into US dollars and cast it in stone. And then at the end of the year, we look at ZIMRA's collections. Would they have exceeded their target?
Yes, they would.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it's just that the expenditure is a whole lot more. But if you look at, let's say last year, I would say they collected between 3 and 3.5 billion US dollars, which is actually...
And their target in US dollars was how much?
Well, their target in US dollars would have been around 3 billion.
Okay.
So,
and historical context, our budget has historically been
$4 billion.
Our budget has historically been
so they're collecting 3.58 official rate, but the market is...
No.
This other. I'm just trying to sort of like...
I'm just saying if you iron out the differences in exchange rates and everything, and you look at how much they're collecting...
Can you guys answer my question?
No, it's okay.
No.
Can you stop answering your own questions? I mean,
No. We haven't reached there.
is-
We needed to
To
establish a base.
Yeah.
You know, this
We
is
just
the one
established
thing I
a
don't
base.
expect to happen.
We've done that.
Yeah.
We've done that. So yeah, ZIMRA has been exceeding its target. So our problem is, I think you're articulating that now.
over expenditure. So for my end, it's ZIMRA is continually meeting its targets because of the introduction of new taxes. So the economy is actually not growing. That's my hypothesis. Because if the economy was growing, then naturally your taxes. We're still establishing a base so that he can answer your question. Because he's asking more questions.
I've actually even forgotten your question, but just finish.
So
just finish.
my question, my original question was, what has Mtuli done to increase his revenue base?
Okay, he's done quite a few things.
Like what?
Mainly on the royalty side. I think he's trying to collect more from the mines.
No, he's saying to increase taxes. What has Mtuli done?
Yes.
Right. And he introduced the 2%
But that's
electronic tax.
Okay, that was 2 years ago.
Well, it's what I mean is we need to show just how insatiable this beast is. That 2% tax is now collecting 10% of ZIMRA's overall collections.
So
it's
just
actually
after
quite
PAYE
significant.
and corporate
VAT, corporate tax, and employment tax. It's now the fourth largest, right? And that's still not enough. Right.
Okay, so what has he done this year?
This year he's done 3 important things. So the first thing is he's increased
That's a very
the withholding.
liberal use of the word important.
Okay.
He's done 3 things.
He's done 3. Why I'm calling them important is because we should pay attention to what he has done. Because remember, he's already squeezed us enough times, but he's squeezing again. That's why these 3 things are very important. So the first thing is withholding tax. He's increased it from 10% to 30%. And you guys are the accountants. What does that mean?
So wait, so if I don't have a tax clearance and I supply a registered company, I will lose
30% of your value.
30% of my value.
So as an accountant, what do you do to counter that?
Well, it depends. I mean, I know the answer you want is that I should increase my price, but it depends on whether I can. If I can't,
No, you just become more shadowy. You just go into the shadow
or
economy.
become broke.
Yeah, rogue, shadow economy.
No, broke, not rogue.
Oh, all right. I think you're more likely to go rogue.
Yeah.
I'll just tell my customer to pay me in cash.
Yeah.
Because 30%, guys.
The point,
how many
the
businesses
point
have a
really-
30% margin?
Well, it's interesting because even the formal businesses, when you look at Zimbabwe has come out and they've said the 2% tax is eating into their margins. So these are the formal businesses. So if you think about the informal sector, and Zimbabwe is the second largest informal sector in the world, right? And its contribution, they were already making the contribution through VAT, and VAT is like
2%.
24%. And then the 2% is 10%. So the informal sector was already making a direct impact on our economy or on ZIMRA revenues.
Okay, so 30% withholding tax.
Yeah.
Number one. What else has he done?
Okay, so that's number one. That's actually quite critical. Then the second thing is he's revised the way we calculate royalties and fees
Yeah.
On minerals.
on minerals. And our tax expert, I think, can speak more into that.
No, go ahead. You started very well, go ahead.
Oh, and
Let's label it with
the
apologies.
third thing,
Okay, so what's he done? So basically, the mines are going to pay more.
the mines are going to pay more.
He's changed the formula. Okay.
Yeah, he's changed the formula so that they pay more.
Okay.
And I think the critical why it's important is what's going to happen when commodity prices actually come down.
The formula is going to work against it. But we'll change the rules. It's fine. Okay, what's the third
And then the third one really affects consumers, where if you're buying a new cell phone, you're being taxed $50. And I think
Is this on a new phone? Every new phone you pay.
you pay $50.
What if the
Yeah,
phone
we
costs
actually-
$7?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, we actually had an interesting discussion because I actually don't understand it as well. Maybe you can clarify.
I
So
think it's desperate.
even if you've got 2 phones at your house, and one of your phones is dead apparently, and you want to change your lines to another phone, would they charge you $50 still?
I think your SIM card can tell if it's a new phone.
So all phones that were being used prior.
It's okay, but any new phone
that comes in, it's got a $50 charge.
And I think that
But okay,
it's
I-
two
that's
things.
fine.
No, but as an accountant, I'll say be wary of going down this rabbit hole because there'll be practice notes issued
Yeah.
by ZIMRA
Yeah.
that will give more detail on this. But the intention is every new
phone.
However, ZIMRA then defines it.
Unless you provide
That you've
tax
paid
certificate that you've
duty for
actually
it.
paid duty for it.
Also, if you pay duty, you're exempt. Oh, so you just need to go to a formal shop.
No,
Most phones, people just bring them in.
yeah, they smuggle them in.
Well,
In short,
Oh, so if you go on holiday to Dubai and you come back with a new phone,
yes.
you must pay 50.
You must pay
$50.
$50. But what's interesting is what's happening. What's going to happen with tourists who come in
And buy a SIM card.
and buy a SIM card?
no, I'm sure, like you said, practice notes. They'll be like, give us a passport, no $50. Hopefully,
All right.
Yeah.
But I think to me it speaks to the desperation of our current
Yeah.
government to, where ZIMRA is meeting its targets, but we seem not to be able to sustain our budget within.
Well, you know what I thought you'd get at. Okay, you're getting at it, but another example I thought you'd use to illustrate your point was this thing of going after second-hand car dealers who've got their car sitting in bond, and saying,
Yes, it's another
So
desperation.
basically, what we're doing is we're
that's
looking
true.
for pockets of people that are making money
and trying to tax them.
and
Squeeze.
trying to squeeze them.
He's squeezing.
So the people who are selling cell phones are making money. Let's get some out of them.
So in short, what we're saying
mines
is
are
we
making money,
failed to
let's get
contain
more
the
out of them.
expenditure,
Yes.
and now we're out there squeezing as much as possible from
Exactly.
whoever we can tax.
And then, so what's next? Who knows what new taxes are going to come next year?
Inflation. Remember, inflation is also a tax. So when you see them squeezing like this, if they don't get enough revenue that they need, just know that the next thing that they're going to use is inflation. Inflation is the ultimate tax.
Maybe you can explain that a bit more. I think.
Okay, so what we're saying is the industry base is actually decreasing.
Yeah.
The tax base is actually decreasing. So they're using all these means to tax, but once they reach a limit, what's going to happen is they're going to continue spending, but it's going to be deficit funded spending. So where they literally print for whatever expenditure that they need.
So printing.
Printing will be, and printing is a tax.
Yeah, it's a tax,
It's,
yeah.
it's, it's a form of
It
tax.
reduces everybody's real income.
Real income. So I think that for a guy who came in 3 years ago, this is third budget. If you look at the amount of taxes is introduced, I think this is you're the tax expert. I would say these are more significant than any we've seen in the last 40 years.
Yeah, true.
But okay, let's just take this from where we began this evening. So expenditure's gone up. Well, actually, we began with debt assumption. So we've overspent in the past. We've nationalized it. But our expenditure continues to go up. It's probably going up in the wrong areas. We think that, or I think it should be high on education. It should be high
Production.
on developing industry and commerce. But it's high in other areas. And we're trying to catch up by squeezing whoever is making money in the country. And you're saying the end result is probably greater poverty
Yeah.
and inflation.
And inflation. And there's an interesting axiom in economics that says you cannot tax your way to growth. So never believe a guy who says we're growing and he's increasing his taxes.
So what's the correct way? What should we be doing?
Increasing. We should actually be reducing our expenditure. So if you were to grow, reduce your expenditure, that's what he should be targeting at, is those line items so that he reduces his expenditure, not increase his tax revenue. So reduce expenditure, reduce your tax revenue, reduce your taxes, and increase investment, increase attraction around savings. So have positive interest rates, have a stable economy, monetary system, and then you start getting money coming in. But he's staring at the elephant in the room. This just tells us that he's coming to the realization that he should have when he got in, which is the big problem that Tendai Biti, that Chinamasa and Namtuli are staring at, is the debt trap, our external debt.
Okay,
At the end of the
Over
day,
and above what is said, I think, before you go into that rabbit hole, Like from basic principle of tax, which we actually learned in school, I think you
Yeah,
can
I don't
either
remember that. I'm not part of
you
this.
can either use tax, which is basically what it's doing, to incentivize business to grow, which I think we've hardly had any incentives for businesses to grow in terms of our tax system. So there's a lot. I think what they've done maybe in the renewable energies industry, where they've said, okay, rebates and zero tax for these products and so on and so on. We saw almost nothing in this new budget to say, okay, guys, in these particular areas that you want to grow, we are actually going to give you incentives for you to actually be able to mobilize resources and grow without the tax burden. So that arm of the tax, I think, is not really been used as much as it should, I think. If you are going
He's
for the growth.
forgotten it.
He's
a guy.
forgotten like a total arm
Yeah.
of the taxation policy, and all they're looking at now is just collecting revenue, which I think at the end of the day leads to what Tinashe is talking about. So we are in a trap, really, because the revenue will never really catch up unless there's growth.
Yes.
So unless we come up with tax policies that actually encourage growth, we're not going to get to a situation where we solve our problems.
But what he was touching on is actually, even if you do that, won't work because we're in a debt trap.
Yes, but he's saying, which is right, is if you increase the facility to grow enough, if you were to grow enough,
Yeah.
then maybe you could dig yourself out of the
Out of
debt.
the- yeah.
But just explain the debt trap quickly.
Okay, so a
30 seconds.
debt trap is usually, in very simple terms, is when your interest on your debt is now higher than your growth rate. So in simple terms, in economics, that's when you're in a debt trap. And then when you look at-
the growth in Mutuli's income
Yeah,
is less
Then his interest.
than what his creditors want as interest.
As
Never
interest.
mind
The
the
actual
principal
debt.
repayment.
exactly. So you're not
So
caught
he
in a
can't
debt
get
trap.
out.
You can't get out.
And is this a fact?
It is
in
a fact
Zimbabwe-
in Zimbabwe, and we've been stuck here for the last
But
20
when you
years.
say we can't, what are we saying? So what's the solution then?
The solution is HIPIC, so highly
Debt write-off?
indebted
Okay.
poor countries,
Yeah.
which Mugabe didn't want, but which Mutuli has put his head out. Let's see what the politicians
I think
will
BT
say.
put his head out as well, and it never happened.
Yeah, it never happened because
Yeah.
the politicians were not interested at all. But HIPIC is, and I've articulated this, that if you look at the last 20 years in Africa, the countries that have doubled their growth, right? If you look at Nigeria, which is now the largest economy in Africa, the only reason why it doubled its growth.
Explain
the
this to
fiddle
me.
with the
explain
accounting.
this
Yeah,
to
no,
me
no,
simply.
but-
We are not paying the interest. We are not actually paying off the debt.
It's
so why
accumulating.
Yeah, I know it's accumulating, but it's a
accumulating.
figure that's just sitting there and it doesn't really affect us because we're not paying anything out of
Well,
our own
it does affect you because where you're now getting debt. So it might be the 1.4 that you're getting from FXIM, but you're paying more than 10% interest.
No, but we're
on
not paying it.
No, but
We are-
No,
Okay,
that's,
okay,
that
okay.
you are paying.
No, no, okay.
Are we paying
no,
anything?
but
Yeah.
Sashi, a simpler way to put it for you is you can't get new debt.
Yeah, but
to fund your growth.
remember, we can't get new debt
Or
for a whole lot
FDI.
of other reasons.
No.
No. No.
We people don't lend us because we owe them.
Yeah.
They don't lend us not because of sanctions.
But there is a fundamental problem.
No, I understand
where
where
we're
you're
in
coming from.
arrears.
But-
we
but-
owe them money.
But I think what we have told ourselves is we don't get new debt because
Well, that's
we've got
the
sanctions. That's the way
that's
we've
the
sanitized
political
it. Yeah, I
rhetoric.
know,
That's the
yeah.
political
Yeah,
rhetoric. But I think that as Minister of Finance, he's now staring into the same problem that every other minister, from Makoni, Murerwa, Simba Mangwende.
No,
remember?
he wasn't.
He was
Simba
for a
Makoni.
bit. There was
No,
Simba
Simba
Makoni.
Makoni was him. Yeah.
There was
and
Ma-
Mangwende for a bit.
for a
Mangwende
bit.
Mangwende for a bit. Yeah.
Oh, Mangwende. Mbengegwi, sorry.
Mbengegwi.
Mbengegwi, yeah.
Where else?
Chambati. Oh, Chambati.
Oh, Chambati was
Good
previous,
days.
was the good days,
Yes.
but
Then after those guys, we then went
Chinamasa, BT, and now Mtuli, they've all
into Chombo for a while.
Chombo. So this is an interesting anecdote about Chombo.
The producers gonna cut our heads off.
In the 3 months that he was a Minister of Finance, our debt actually increased by $1 billion.
Wait,
But it was domestic debt, but it was.
Anyway, I think
So what we're saying is Mtuli has finally got to the position that all these other ministers have been staring at, which is this external debt. It's serious. It's a problem. And if you want sustainable growth in the future, you're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have to deal with that. So debt forgiveness, I think, just gives us a lot of leeway. So even FDI, the only reason why FDI will not coming in, because anyone who comes in realizes that
But
if I bring in...
if
No,
I
okay, you
owed
guys,
okay
we've got-
money,
we-
for
we-
instance,
we've got
let
in
me
this
just finish.
discussion.
If I owed okay money and they came to me and said, I want to forgive your debt, I would just sign off that. Why are we not getting
You're the
that?
apologist. You tell us.
No, I want him to tell me the reasons.
Well, they're political and institutional reforms. that
Exactly.
we
So it
need.
goes back to
Sanctions.
politics and sanctions.
It's been lovely having you along. As usual, if you take us seriously, you really ought to have your head examined. We do not know what we're talking about. But we hope that we've inspired you and those around you to discuss some of these things. COVID is real, but also we are in the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. So let's be nice to each other. Not just now, but all the time.
For 16 days.
No, for more than 16 days.
Yeah.
All the time. Be nice to the people around you, especially of the opposite sex. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your weekend, or if you're watching this during the week, enjoy the rest of your week. Take care of yourself. Be good. If you can't be good, be good at it.